The Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.
Hello and welcome to another super special episode of The Sound of Money with me, Santosh Sirur. I have a very special guest joining me from Mumbai. We have Mr. Ajit Menon, who is the Chief Executive Officer at PGIM India Mutual Fund. Uh, he is an industry veteran with 2 decades of experience, and that experience comes from his leadership experience, of course, comes from business strategy, distribution, sales, and marketing. And Ajit, of course, has been associated with the mutual fund industry since 1997. So that talks about the quantum of experience he has. But very interestingly, he comes from a telecom sector, which is very interesting to know. And we'll talk more about that. But first, let's welcome Mr. Menon. Hi, Ajit, and welcome to this podcast, The Sound of Money.
Hi, Santosh. I'm very glad to be here with you and talking to your audience. I hope you have a great podcast today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining in. So, Mr. Menon, the first question I have for is the mutual fund industry. You have seen this industry, it's probably the nascent stages, as you say, 1997, which many of us didn't even know what's a mutual fund. And more importantly, right, for whatever in the background, everyone had that background about the 1992 scam. So it must have been pretty difficult and challenging for you guys to sell the product. Maybe if you could share your experience from there, and where is it that you see today as an industry veteran in mutual funds?
Of course, Santosh. And as you mentioned, I mean, for me, the journey started way back in 97 when I joined Standard Chartered Bank in priority banking. And a few months later, we were introducing mutual funds at the bank. And being part of priority banking, it was a product that we could take out to customers. And very soon, I realized the excitement amongst the typical, business community as well as professionals when we were talking about investing in the equity markets so the related topic was very interesting to them, because before that they just had people like me come and talk about bank deposits and loans and things like that, and now we were talking investments, and everybody had something to do with the markets, and therefore that was a very exciting time. And I do remember that at those points of time, even if we did a small sale, or if what today is SIP is such a large part of the industry, but if we got a couple of SIPs in those days, which were literally checks written out, people had to write out 12 checks, and then we had to bring them over and say, okay, now this is going to be put into a file folder. So every month we'll present the check for investments. Those were the days, and they were very exciting to sort of get there. Today, it's a whole different world where it's automated and, intuitive, and people are aware that about, SIPs, to the point that today people say, I have done an SIP, I have not done any mutual funds. And they don't realize that, it's all, connected. So those were the days in 97 where it was all about, selling, concept selling to mostly high net worth individuals. And today it has transformed to being much more retail. There's a lot more awareness. And I think that there have been, various things along the way that I have seen from those days in 97, where it was just high net worth people. And now that it's shifted to more of the affluent and middle class and retail as we speak, many things have happened along the way. And to me, the most significant shift actually has happened very under the radar and without people realizing it or reading it in newspapers or magazines. And I think it had to do with the government's and the central bank's focus on just making sure that the RBI works on controlling inflation, and the government takes care of growth initiatives. So rather than having a dual objective of controlling inflation and stimulating growth, you had in around 2015, 2016, at the time that Raghuram Rajan was here and Arun Jaitley was at the Ministry of Finance, where the government said, listen, we are going to take care of the growth part and let the central bank simply focus on inflation. And they actually changed the central bank policy in Parliament. And not only that, that's the time where the central bank decided that we will focus not on WPI, the Wholesale Price Index, which is at the factory gate. And that was what we had followed since independence. And they said, we're going to shift to CPI, which affects the common man. And the CPI at that point of time, Santosh, if you'll remember, was in double digits. It was 10% plus. And here is what happened. they decided that they will take a target on the CPI and controlling it in India to a 4% plus minus 2 range. So the lower bound at 2%, higher bound at 6, but to be at 4%. Now, why am I talking about this being something which is under the radar? And the reason for that, Santosh, is because inflation, and especially CPI inflation, has a great impact on hard assets like gold and real estate. So when you have higher CPI inflation in a country, and I'm hoping that I'm not making this too technical for the audience, but just to get an understanding that as CPI inflation is high, you see the value of gold and real estate increasing. And here's the point, right? India is drunk on real estate and gold in that pre-era before 16. And the moment the Reserve Bank of India managed to get that CPI inflation from those double digits down to that range of 4%, what we saw is real estate investing simply cooled off. And so did gold. And that is where the interest in financial assets began to grow by leaps and bounds, because now when you have low inflation, which also means that you have low interest rates in an economy, then for business people, it was a great environment to set up factories, set up businesses, and create wealth. And therefore, financial assets started taking off. And I think that, to me, if I were to map my career into mutual funds and into this domain and think about the whole journey and think about what would have been that one single factor that changed India's appreciation and interest towards financial assets, I think it's that move in 2015-16 of the central bank to focus in controlling CPI to a level which keeps interest rates low and helps businesses to generate better margins, better profits, and therefore reflected in equity markets and so on and so forth. I think alongside this, the second aspect to which I also feel that in this journey, if I were to think about a second factor which is important, I think it's a simple factor that per capita income in India has been moving up, right? We maybe had $1,000 10 years ago, and last year the Reserve Bank of India reported that it's roughly around $2,400 now. So imagine a journey from independence, all the way to 2020 or 2010, 11 or so, where it's $1,000, and now you've doubled it in 10 years. And if India grows at the rate that it's growing, it'll double again in maybe 6 or 7 years. And I think the key there to understand and appreciate is that as your per capita income increases, the allocation that you make to roti kapda makan, as they say, is it does not expand too much, because if you're making more money and more surpluses, you're not going to eat 5 times a day. You're still going to eat 3 times a day. But those surpluses now are getting into consumption or investment. So the surpluses in India have really expanded as this per capita income has expanded over the last 10 years and is going to expand even further. And therefore, you're seeing these flows that are coming into the equity market today, where domestic investors are standing up pretty equal to foreign investors, where once upon a time, India was vulnerable to foreign inflows and outflows. Now you have domestic investors with surpluses enough to buy on the other side. So I think these are two aspects in my journey, which I think were the seminal sort of factors to consider, to think about the whole journey we have had to now more than 50 lakh crores in mutual funds and even more in direct equity and so on and so forth. So there you go.
Long journey, but amazing journey, I'm sure, for you. In fact, I'm sure your 1997 customers to whom you sold those SIPs must be blessing you in tons. Because
I hope so. I hope so, Santosh, because the data says that people don't stay that long, right? I mean, whether it's international fund managers or it's India's fund managers, a lot of people talk about their 25-year returns being in the double digits at 18 or 19 or 20%. And then they look at their data and say that there's nobody who stayed that long in a fund. And if there are people who have stayed that long, they're dead. And they've forgotten that their money is in the fund.
True, because
So I
in
wouldn't
those days,
suggest that.
nominations, joint owner is not really a concept, right? One would just
That's
sign for a SIP and things would just move on, Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So, people, this investment, if you really want to get the best out of it, it's really boring. You got to fill it,
Yeah,
shut it for the day. But most people
absolutely.
want to tinker around with their investments every 2 or 3 years. So the average age of retail investments in India is not more than 3 years. It's under 3 years, right?
Such an
The benefits.
unfortunate thing, right? In these days,
That's the,
can't think
yeah,
of,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
So the secret is fill it, shut it, forget it. If you
absolutely.
if you know your time frame of investment, and you're going to make better than most other people. It's very simple,
Absolutely.
commonsensical, but very
Absolutely.
difficult to follow.
Yeah, yeah. Let's come, Ajit, to this point of investor awareness, because this is a very equally important point. Because now, as you say, you have retail, the tier 2 and tier 3 city also aware of mutual funds. And as rightly said, SIPs mein kiya hai, mutual fund mein nahi. That's the kind of mindset. But what kind of efforts is the industry doing to make these awareness, or go on an enhanced level? From your side, what kind of efforts are being done by the industry as a whole?
Yeah, and as you know, the Association of Mutual Funds in India, the AMFI Association, has done a lot of work in terms of investor awareness. And I think that we must recognize the role played by the regulator, SEBI, in India, to have come at a point and said that we've got to keep 2 basis points of the revenue that a mutual fund earns aside, where 1 basis point will be used by the asset management company itself to drive awareness programs and not talk of products, just talk of the concept of mutual funds and the benefits of it. And 1 basis point will be given into a common kitty used by the Association of Mutual Funds in India to, build on awareness campaigns. And that's where the Mutualfundssahihai campaign took off. And it happened at a time, as I mentioned, Santosh, that there were many things that came together. The RBI move of controlling inflation and therefore being successful at that, financial assets therefore coming in the forefront. At the same time, an awareness campaign which is hitting people at a time that they're getting surpluses. I think they all played a part in creating that big awareness. And we saw this, we are seeing this in good measure, as you mentioned, in the tier 2 and tier 3 and tier 4 cities as well. So even though on the overall, they are a smaller proportion of what the total assets of the industry are, but the growth rates are far higher than the other part of the market. So we're seeing people in the hinterlands, in the smaller cities, really because of awareness, because of digital literacy and the availability of so many convenient tools for them to participate. Uh, taking to mutual funds, especially the younger generation, taking to mutual funds and investing. And the efforts that the industry is putting, as you asked, is about doing investor awareness programs, not just in the big cities, but also in the smaller cities. There are various associations that continue to do these investor programs for different cohorts of people. And the industry has really done that across the board. And some of the larger AMCs compared to PGIM have obviously done much, much more, given that they have a larger corpus, and so do we. We try and focus our efforts to, for instance, teachers and women. So what we are trying to do is that even though we have a smaller budget, we're trying to, speak to a single type of audience so we can get better impact. And we do a lot more work amongst teachers and women across. If we find partners who do that for us, we tend to participate there. But the larger asset managers and AMFI, they do a lot of programs across the board as well. So this has definitely led to a lot of not just awareness, but people participating in the markets and being aware of the big mistakes that they shouldn't be making, and how to go about investing. And SIP clearly is a success factor for the industry that's come out of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wonderful insights, Ajit. I also wanted to ask you about the SEBI registered investment advisors, because a lot of my audiences essentially are youngsters, are students, MBA students, who are probably looking at investment banking opportunities, investment opportunities, and careers. I'm sure there is definitely a dearth of this job as an investment advisor. So how does one really go about with, becoming a registered investment advisor, and what are the kind of, numbers that we talk of in India? Because it's a two-pronged question. One is from a career standpoint, and the second is I believe we don't have as many advisors, because I do come across lots of professionals, doctors, engineers, even financial background guys who probably are wondering how to go and get in touch with an investment advisor. So, any views on this that you can share?
So firstly, if you're looking to get in touch with a registered investment advisor, you can simply go over to the SEBI website and look for the list of RIAs who are registered, because they're registered with SEBI, and you can think about picking up somebody who you want to get in touch with and interview a few of those and see who matches up with your thought process and who you're comfortable with. So you can do that by going over to the SEBI website. You can look at advisors and distributors who are not RIAs, but you want somebody in your locality, get onto the AMFI website and look for registered distributors. You can find people in your locality to do it. And I would say that there are many, many advisors who are not RIA, but are very qualified, who are currently probably waiting for regulations to get a little bit more flexible and easier for them to probably participate. And they still don't want to sort of jump into it immediately. But it doesn't mean that they're not doing a very decent job of sitting and understanding your goals and your risk appetites, and therefore, helping you with products and solutions. So you can get that as well. But, since we're talking about RIAs, it's a favorite category for me as well, because, I have not invested in a single stock in my life in that sense. All of my investments is through mutual funds, and I invest through an advisor.
Okay.
My advisor was also an RIA, and he is now shifting the license over to an individual name and things like that. So very much within that ecosystem of looking at financial planning and goal-oriented investing, which I think is the most powerful way to manage money, over your lifetime. And I would advise anybody to do that. So the RIA community is still small, as you mentioned. I think a little over 1,300 or 1,400 licenses out there. But if you were to look at, that SEBI would give this license out, there are even broking entities that need to take up the RIA license when they are advising somebody. And then there are pure RIAs who think about financial planning, goal planning. And I think that today, when you think about this community, the way that they have been structured by the regulator is to have no conflict of interest in the work that they do, which means that we as mutual funds do not pay them any commissions.
Okay.
And so they would, sit on the table on the side of the investor, think about what he or she wants on their investments, and advise them with direct plans of mutual funds. And direct plans are nothing but, today, when you're investing in mutual funds in India, you can invest in two plans of a single fund. You can either invest in the direct plan of a mutual fund or the regular plan of a mutual fund. And the difference between the two is just the commissions that a manufacturing company or a mutual fund like us would pay a distributor. So the registered investment advisor does not earn commissions, and therefore they choose the direct plan option, which is a lower cost option for the customer. And then they would charge a fee. And therefore, there's no conflict of interest, which is a great place to be for the investor as well as the advisor. And you also get that little benefit of the fact that the cost is much lower. But you must remember that you will be paying a fee, of course, which is definitely worth it, because an RIA would plan out your entire financial life rather than just a few products. So it is nascent, I would say. But I recently was participating in one of the meetings that the ARIA Association, the Association of RIAs in India, did, along with the SEBI chairperson. And it was a very, very good discussion of the challenges of RIAs, the opportunities, and what the regulator and the industry can work together to smoothen the journey for people to get into this. So surely, as a career option into the coming future in India, I do believe that this is a great place for people to start if they're looking at a profession focused on this. I will probably advise to maybe choose an RIA as a mentor, or maybe even intern and work with one or two of the RIAs to get some experience before you start on your own. That might be a good route. All of them are phenomenal people who can, who help the community grow here in India.
Yeah, that's a fantastic suggestion. I'm sure a lot of my young listeners and young professionals who want to get into this space will get some kind of a channels their thoughts towards connecting with RIs. It's a wonderful suggestion, Ajit. Ajit, I wanted to also talk to you about one of your favorite topics at heart, which is retirement solutions. And today's retirement, we don't talk about the 58 or the 60s, but you have the FIRE concept where financially independent, retire early, and that could be sometimes it could be as early as 30s, which is quite unthinkable. But when it
Right.
comes to that stage, a lot of people, who probably are, FIRE, yes, but when they retire, they get out of that whatever industry they are in, that space they are in, enjoy that breakfast initially, but then they think that, oh my God, it's a Monday, but what do I do? So I'm sure you have come across these kind of people who don't plan that retirement, right? And then it ends up in, oh, should I start hunting for another job? What's your
Yeah.
advice for these kind of individuals?
Before I advise these people, I think we need to take one step back and think about this topic. And I think I can bring some insights from the PGIM Retirement Survey that we have done twice over now, once
Yeah.
released in 20 and one we released in 23. And Santosh, I think that the first insight that we have got from that is that people only invest for happy outcomes. They do not invest for unhappy outcomes. So when you think about it, people love to invest for their children's education, their children's marriage, buying a house, buying a car, starting a business, going on a holiday. Think about it. These are all very happy outcomes that you're looking forward to. For some reason, for a lot of Indians, especially in the service class, retirement is an unhappy outcome. And when you think about the word retirement, they think about their uncles or their neighbors who are down with diabetes and hypertension and, some medical issue, or sitting at home watching TV, just taking grandkids to school and back. And that's not their picture of retirement. It's not a happy picture. And because it's not a happy picture, they tend to push this down the priority list. So the first rule is that if you're thinking about retirement as a subject, you need to be, as an individual, having to sort of cast it into what is the happy aspect that you're thinking about in retirement. Unless and until you don't frame that subject in your mind as a happy topic, you're unlikely to take the steps required to get there. So that's the first insight. People have to make this a happy outcome. And one solution that I have is just drop the word retirement. Think of it as financial freedom. Everybody loves financial freedom, whether you're 30 or 50 or whatever. So frame it as financial freedom and then start thinking about what you need to do. The second insight that I would give, Santosh, is, and this is really, really important. Amongst all the financial goals that you have in your life, from your children's education to their marriage, to a house, to a car, to a starting and retirement and all of that, retirement is the only financial goal for which you don't get a loan. Think about this. Retirement is the only financial goal for which you don't get a loan. You're investing for your kids, and I tell people that don't worry about it. If you fall short, you can take an education loan. If you fall short of some other goal, you can take a loan, and that's fine. You can plan it out. But retirement, you're not going to be able to go up to your banker and say, hey, I'm retired, can you give me a loan, right? There are products like reverse mortgage in Western markets, very matured there, not very matured in India. In India, we did get comments from people when we were serving, which we were surveying, saying that, oh, my child is my reverse mortgage. They're going to take care of me.
It's a traditional mindset that probably.
That's right. And there is an increasing need for at least people in the urban cities that we're surveying to say, listen, we don't want to be dependent on our kids. We want to be independent. Now, my issue with FIRE as a concept is, and I might be an old guy talking here, but I'm saying that the issue with FIRE, when I think about it, is it's very selfish. It seems like it's for me, and I want to get out at 30, I want to get out at 40, and I want to backpack around the world and whatever. But, retirement is a lot more than that, right? If you're going to have a family and you have kids, you've got to be thinking about the whole ecosystem and getting financial freedom for everybody. And therefore, what I would suggest for people is to realize this one concept. And if they can get that concept, I think that they would be well on their way to retiring early or retiring when they wish to, without too much of anxiety around it, which is, please recognize that the biggest risk that you run is the fact that you probably have just one skill from which you're earning money.
Yeah, correct.
That's the risk. And
Mm.
therefore, the solution is, as an individual, man or woman, if you think that you can work on one or two more additional skills that you enjoyed while in college or as a student or as an adult, and you think you can monetize those skills, and now you have not one, but at least two or three skills that you can think about monetizing, you do not have to worry about your retirement all through your life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you earn from those skills. So just to repeat, the risk for people as they're thinking about fire as a concept, getting out of the rat race early or whatever, the trick is, the secret is, develop at least one additional skill or two which you can monetize. You can be a yoga teacher, you can be a Reebok fitness trainer, you can be a translator, you can use your voice for and become a voiceover artist. You can breed pets if you love pets and you have the thing to do it. You can bake, you can so there are so many gigs that today people do, and you would know many people. I think that's the secret. Let me stop there, and maybe we can take that conversation ahead. But I think that's my view on
absolutely. And these are avenues today with the mass social media, right? It's possible that you can connect with anybody in the world and sell that business and make it flourishing one, right? So great insights and from you, Ajit. My next question to you is actually nothing to do with mutual funds, nothing to do with investments, nothing to do with the economy, but it's about you. I want to know, and I'm sure my listeners are very keen to know, because today's generation thinks like it's an insta generation, next day success in terms of monetary benefits, etc., etc. But I'm sure this success today you are as a CEO, you started your career, as you told me before we started recording, into a telecom industry, and you're probably one of the first few to actually start selling mobile phones, right? And
right.
that career span, right? Tell us about your hard work, the challenges, the sweet moments of your own career journey, Ajit, for our listeners.
Santosh, I'm sure, I mean, I know that I have worked hard, but at times I do think that we all need a good dose of luck to be in the right place at the right time and make those choices, right? So I did my management studies through Bombay University, the MMS, and I joined Crompton Greaves at from college to sell bulbs and tubes at that point. But it was a marketing job and I wanted to be in sales. So it was a little unlikely for an MBA student to want to be on the ground. People loved marketing at that time. I wanted to be in sales, and I got an opportunity with a company called Hutchison Max Telecom, which was one of the first companies to get a license for mobile phones for the Bombay Circle. That's the brand that we know today as V, or Vodafone Idea, right? V. And those were early days in 95. And, I was part of the first group of salespeople. I was not the first, but the first amongst the first group of salespeople that got mobile phones, and we were selling to people, and it was 16 rupees 80 paise a minute for incoming, outgoing. Those were the days, right? And I enjoyed that quite a lot. And I do think that being part of a good industry, but right at the beginning, gave me a significant boost in my career, because you are in a new industry, and as the industry grows, you grow with it. And a lot of my friends and colleagues during that time have done very well for themselves to rise to senior levels. I then moved to banking, and I do think at that point of time I realized the mistake I won't call it a mistake, but to think about banking has been there, done that. I mean, if you were there or not there, it didn't matter. It's not going to stop, right? But it was also an opportunity for me to get exposed to mutual funds. And I got a sense that this is, again, like telecom, a new industry, a new concept. And therefore, globally, it's a big industry. So I can grow with this industry. And that's what I would attribute to some bit of that luck and timing to be part of a new industry. And therefore, I think I made it to what I am today because of having some of those opportunities of being part of industries that are young and you're learning with the industry, then you start growing as a professional within that. And of course, there's all the hard work that you put into it. I've been a retail enthusiast and professional all through that. And that's how I would credit that I came to the point that I'm here in. I've had crises and challenges to take care of. But I think what kept me going, Santosh, I would say, is that somehow I feel that when I look around with a lot of people, after you finish college and you get into a job, I think people stop learning. Apart from the experience that you get at the job, you don't formally, well, I'm not even thinking about formal certification learning, but I'm talking about just reading. Reading,
making self-aware about what's happening in the world.
Exactly. And I would thank some of my teachers in school for having inculcated a great reading habit, and I keep reading books, and that really helped me have great conversations with my clients. It helps to do that for sure. It also helped me from a leadership aspect to think about dealing with teams of people and the challenges of different industries and how other leaders have come through it, reading biographies, things like that. So I do think that apart from that little bit of hard work and the right opportunity at the right time, making those choices, I think being constantly curious, being a student, always a student wanting to learn, has really helped me sort of to get to where I am today. It's always good to be a big fish in a small pond. When you think about a career point of view, you get bigger responsibilities, you get your promotions and increments better. And then, your own curiosity and being a student, forever learning, does help you along quite a lot.
Absolutely. Wonderful to hear that. And I'm sure Monday to Fridays is a very busy schedule, meetings, invites, travel, business meetings. How is a day off for Mr. Ajit Menon? How do you unwind?
Oh, okay. So, one of the things that I right from school and college that I've done is that I'm an artist. I sort of like sketching. I do portraits as much as I can. I don't do as much now as I was doing maybe sort of 10 years ago as works got busy. But whenever I get a chance, I'll pick up a drawing book, pick up some image and go for it. These days, it's the DC Comics, Avengers, and sort of getting that done for my nephews and stuff. So I love sketching. It's very meditative for me. That's one aspect of it. I also sing, and I love singing with my family and my friends. So I have a recording, equipment at home, and once in a while, with the help of my wife, I'll sort of record or belt a couple of numbers and record
it. So is it Bollywood or what kind of music is this?
Oh, Hindi, Bollywood, old songs. And my friends, still sort of pull my leg saying, suicide ke gaane mat gao. I like the old melodious songs, and the old melodious songs are all one of depression and death.
The
So,
60s, right? The 60s and 70s. Yeah, of course.
That's right. I do that.
But the melody is beautiful, right? In those songs.
It's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. And of course, my wife and I think, we definitely take care of our health. So we have a personal trainer. So we have a routine through the week. And the weekends, we try and get a little bit more done as far as that's concerned. So this keeps me busy. And very, very, very recently, Santosh, we acquired a small plot of land, which is an agricultural plot of land, along with a few friends. And the whole idea is to try and get your hands dirty.
Back to basics,
enough of using the head. I want to use my hands now and not think so much about markets and economy and global politics, and just look at a flower grow somewhere and feel the joy of it. So I end up on weekends doing YouTube research on what to grow and what plants can work, and how to do all of that. So it's fun, and both our kids are out studying, so we are an empty nest. So we need to keep ourselves busy. So all of this is what occupies my time.
Wonderful. I mean, your painting part is something, maybe one or two paintings if you could share, I'm sure our listeners would be more than happy to see, the audiences would be more than happy to see them. Absolutely fantastic having a conversation with you, Ajit, on this episode of my podcast, The Sound of Money. And here is Mr. Ajit Menon, who is the Chief Executive Officer of PGIM India Mutual Fund. Thank you so much for joining in on this podcast, Ajit, for this episode. Thank you so much.
Santosh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And well, with that, we come to the end of this super special episode of The Sound of Money with me, Santosh, and my guest, Mr. Ajit Menon. Thank you once again for tuning in. Bye and take care.
The Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.